Good evening. This is Thomas Robert Simpson with AfroSolo TV here again. Thanks for joining us again this evening. Again, we have a really wonderful show planned for you. We come the first and third Fridays here at 6:30 at SF Live with AfroSolo TV. The main idea of our program is to showcase African American artists, who they are, what they're doing, what difference they're making in our community. Again, tonight, we have a very special person who will be doing some really wonderful things here in the community, and we want you to get to know him. As always, I often don't talk a lot about the guest. I let them speak for themselves, so we'll do that tonight. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest, Mr. Peter Fitzsimmons. How are you doing, Peter?
Doing well, Thomas. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. So, how long have you lived in San Francisco?
I'm actually born and raised in San Francisco, so I won't put the year in there, but
Okay.
I've been around for a while.
So you're
Love this city.
You're a native. In terms of what we do here, initially we just find out a little bit about our guest. So you're from here in San Francisco,
Born and raised San Francisco in the Fillmore district.
and artistically you are quite diverse in that you are an actor. You're very versed in music in terms of jazz.
It's passion.
Passion, okay, and you also have a passion for the visual arts,
I
and
do.
particularly right now, the Jazz Heritage Center and the Lush Life Gallery.
Correct.
But before we talk about that, do you remember your first art class? Was it theater? Was it music? Was it an acting class? What
I
was
had
it?
acting classes in elementary school. I had a passion very early on to make believe, and that, of course, led to theater, telling stories and kind of going into a fantasy world. In kindergarten, I found myself entertaining my other schoolmates, and it kind of got into a point where I was actually doing theater at a very early age. Sixth grade, I was in the school play. Around that same time, I was actually in a professional production of Under Milkwood at a theater company which is long gone, but was quite famous at one time in San Francisco, called the Playhouse, located down by the Buena Vista Cafe and the Wharf area. And so I was in a production of Under Milkwood, and I was caught up in the fantasy world, and I played a little child in a Ring Around the Rosie scene. And that was all it took. I was hooked ever since.
And that was your first performance in front of people.
First real performance, professional.
And then when you say you were hooked, what do you mean that you were hooked?
Well, you always want to do more, and you always want to do more characters, and I love doing comedy, and became really kind of almost an addiction to want to act, to learn how to act. So that carried me into high school, where I continued studies in acting, to college eventually, UC Santa Cruz, acting classes, doing improvisation, creating the Black Magic Theater Company, where we run around and terrorize the rest of the students and get them to do funny things on the spur of a moment. And then eventually to Hollywood, where I did episodic TV, print ads, movies, the life of an actor. You do it all, and anything that comes your way, if you're lucky.
In terms of your period in LA, do you have any special memories?
I remember trying to get to Universal Studios from Malibu, Venice area, and getting up at like 3 in the morning, and you immediately get into a traffic jam in progress, and getting there late. And when I got to Universal Studios, which was an hour and a half away normally, it took me like 4 hours because of the traffic and an accident or whatever, truck turned over. And then from Universal Studios, they would bus you or take you by car to the set, and that was deep in LA. And I remember just being on the freeway like most of the day. So that was kind of a negative memory. But then I've had, my first show was I did Room 222, and Tony Gary was one of the lead guys on the show, and he kind of took me under his wing, and so I have some fond memories of breaking into the business in Hollywood, and it was an eye opener. It was an eye opener.
It's not always what we sort of think of when we go and watch a movie.
Oh, no,
sit
there's
down
a
and
lot
watch TV.
behind
There's
the
a lot of
scenes,
things. A lot of things going on.
A lot of
behind the
egos
scenes.
involved.
Yes. Now, what about your passion for jazz? Where did that come from?
That's even a little deeper. My father, F. Allen Smith, is a master player. He's a trumpet player here in San Francisco. He came out of the Navy band in Hawaii and went to SF State. palled around with Cal Tjader, Paul Desmond, other musicians of that era, Vernon Alley, and Dad became part of the house band at a very legendary nightclub called Bop City. So I was known as the Bop City Baby, actually. And so I would spend time in these jazz clubs, jazz joints, all throughout the Fillmore and throughout most of San Francisco. There was really quite a hotbed of activity in that period of time.
We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Jazz Heritage Center.
Right.
But can you remember some of the people you saw during
I do.
that time?
I do.
Who are some of them? Without name dropping, this is the reality. Who did you see?
Well, I remember seeing Anita O'Day and just falling in love with her voice. I remember seeing Sarah Vaughan. I remember getting quite close because Dad was playing with all these bands. I met Count Basie. I met Duke Ellington. Billie Holiday was special. She came through town. And they all went through these specific clubs that we talk about later. But, I got a chance to hear and see and meet some incredibles, some amazing people. Ella Fitzgerald, backstage with Ella, because Dad, would drag me backstage.
And back during her heyday.
Yes.
Wow.
Amazing lady.
At that time, did you realize what you were being exposed to?
Probably not. I just thought it was an interesting form of entertainment, and music became part of me and in my blood, and I would listen to records, the old record albums, the 78s, the 33s, and just finding myself really loving jazz music and really craving it.
Wonderful. So, with your acting interest, your passion for jazz, somehow or other it moved into the visual arts. So, do you remember how that happened?
The transition was pretty unremarkable. I was up from Los Angeles dealing with some family matters, and turns out my mom was sick, and I had to kind of stay in the area for a period of time. So I kind of turned my back in a sense on Hollywood, and came back to San Francisco. And at that moment, an opportunity opened up where I was able to work in an art gallery. And I also had sort of a passion for art because my family, my mom was kind of in the Bohemian era, the beatnik era, and our family dinners were surrounded by artists and poets and jazz musicians and painters and actors. So all of these elements kind of combined in my makeup as a young child. And art was part of that. So when I had a chance to kind of learn the ropes at a San Francisco gallery, I moved up very quickly. And then because I guess of my acting abilities, I was able to connect with people and bond with people and eventually get them to buy art. So I did well in the art gallery business, and then eventually I became director of the Richard McDonald Gallery and sold high-end art and sculpture. So, quickly speaking,
Sure.
it all led that way.
In terms of your trajectory in the arts, who are some people that you idolize or you admire, or people who you felt helped point you to where you are right now?
So many elements. I mean, you look at the, working with you, Thomas, and the AfroSolo, that's another part of my makeup, because I was able to do a one-man show based on the lives and times of Sergeant Johnson, and an amazing artist who lived here in the Bay Area, and he was an African-American light-skinned artist, so I played him. And his artwork, he did all the mediums. He did clay, he did terracotta, he did oil on canvas, he did just an amazing variety of genres, and he excelled in all of them.
Yes, Sergeant Johnson. He actually lived in San Francisco.
Correct.
Yes.
And a very interesting, fabled career, and his he got to meet, Ansel Adams, and other great artists of that time in San Francisco, Benny Buffano. And so, all of these elements kind of go into my makeup and my appreciation for art. Picasso, all the greats, the masters. I've been there, done that, been to the museums around the world, and art appreciation is a good thing.